Welcome back to Connect. I am your host, Andy Hale. I'm so excited to sit down here again with Cynthia Johnson. Hey, Cynthia.
Hi, Andy. So good to be back.
So for people that had been listening, it was back on March 20th. We had an episode called Coffee or a Cocktail. And the second part of that episode, you were on. You were our contest winner to get a free session with spiritual medium Jessica Rachel Snider. And you talked a little bit about your feelings before you went into the session. You've now completed it, so we're going to talk about that. And I'm so excited to hear your feedback. A couple things before we jump into it. You had mentioned that you were a little maybe intimidated by the process, a little, like not sure what to expect, a little scared. But when you won the contest, you thought maybe this is a sign I need to do it. I think you also said you weren't sure like the link between intuition and a spirit guide. And then my only request to you was honesty and authenticity. In terms of reporting back. So that was over 3 months ago. You've now completed your session. What word would you describe? What word would you use to describe it?
Oh, one word. I would go with encouraging. Encouraging, yes, that's the first thing that came to me. So that must be the word. Yep.
So what did you think before we kind of get into a little bit of the details? What did you think of Jessica? The process, how it went, did you come away feeling like what?
It sort of came in waves. There was the initial feeling, then there was the mid meeting feeling, then there's this like post meeting feeling, and then variations over the past few months of how I felt about it. And I say that because I think initially working through my own internal bias was important. So I'm like, okay, what are you really going to tell me? This is weird. Like, this is an odd situation. And then halfway through, there were things that really, started to resonate, but maybe I wasn't ready to face yet or understand myself. So I had to go back. And then after, when talking to a couple people about it, and getting the advice to maybe just take it in and not talk about it and really think through it yourself, that actually gave me the opportunity to realize that I felt like it was eye-opening and almost felt like a reflection, like really seeing yourself in a mirror, because the things that were said were not what I expected, even going in and saying, oh, it's going to be this, drastic life-changing thing, or it's going to be, everything that she said actually was not in line with what I expected. And and so that was at first difficult to take in because it's new information. And then it became encouraging, I think, over the past few months as I really thought about it.
Well, a couple things. First of all, I want to stress it's not like you go in, everybody goes in with a little bit of apprehension or unknowing. When I went in, I never had even heard of a spiritual medium, a spirit guide. I was always big on intuition, gut feelings. Always felt like I had, not like I was special, but I always felt like had a certain sense of that, of intuition and follow your gut. So I'm not expecting anybody to just have a session and be immediately like, oh yeah, I'm 100% on board. Like this, it is a lot to take in and digest, like you say. It's the whole process, what it is, who she is, what she's channeling. I think you have the right approach with letting it all sink in and taking it in, because the only way to really, I think, assess it is over time. So let's talk a little bit about, tell me some of what you thought the main takeaways were, and then we'll transition. We'll talk a little bit about how things have progressed since your session, because that your session was how long ago?
March 20th, so we're now in July, almost July
Okay.
20th. What is that? 4
Yeah.
months?
Yeah. So we've had some time to let this process and go through. So what did you feel like some of the takeaways were from your spirit guide, what your spirit guide was telling
Mhm.
you?
So, the first takeaway was I think the big one. You asked the question of like, am I living like my life purpose, or and the expectation. I think also going into this feeling sort of disconnected, looking for something. There's all of the reasons why I think you would do something like this, and then they said, yeah, and you might just not be applying it in the right way. Like the application is maybe not there, but the purpose is, which is, I was kind of expecting blow your whole life up, go, become a lawyer. I don't know, like do something else. And then the second piece was that uh saying that part of my journey or purpose was to help people, essentially to help people avoid their own victimhood, was her explanation. And then over the past few months digesting it, I realized that, well, if that is true, I should probably work on myself first, because I definitely went into that session feeling victimized by my own life that I created a little bit. You just go
Yeah.
through phases, and so there were small changes that I started to make, and really could start asking myself, am I making myself the victim in this situation? Because that is the opposite of my purpose. And so that my life, I mean, I had a baby, 6 weeks ago, mid of this. So in the process, my life is really, I would say, before I would say changed, and I would say has been enhanced. And I've had time and space to think about how to apply some, but those were the really big takeaways. And there was a lot of fun parts to it, right? Like she saw a lot of colors, and my spirit guide is very fun and cute, and so that made it helpful, even though the information was hard to take at first.
Has it taken a little time for it to sink in terms of seeing what the spirit guide was saying and then seeing ways it may be relevant to your life and things you can do along that line?
Absolutely. And I think it really starts with uh not allowing these choices that seem simple. I'm like you, and Andy, and I like to move quickly, right? And so what ended up, I think, for me happening, that came out in this session, is I was making choices off the cuff, maybe without really thinking them through. And then and that's the reason I ended up feeling kind of, I think, victimized, because I didn't even think about the the environment I had created, because I was moving so quickly and making decisions so fast. I wasn't accounting for them in many ways. And so, yeah, I think that the other part of it is that being helping yourself first to help other people, and understanding what it really means. And I think that there was a lot of maybe enabling I was doing in certain ways, and like, um, that has helped. That has definitely been helpful. Uh, Slowing down, probably not your favorite thing to hear.
No,
That was
I'm
helpful.
some of the advice I've gotten it recently is I've got too many plates spinning. It's basically delegate. I mean, my most recent session, which was a few months ago, was you have too much going on, delegate. And actually, this was really interesting. So my spirit guy was also saying, like, can we talk about retirement from the law? like, so you can focus on your big purpose of which is kind of inspiring and motivating the masses. Like you're helping individuals, with your law practice, Chester Uyghur, Starbuck murders, things like that. But there's a bigger stage for you, a bigger audience for you. And we kind of need you to wind down this law practice, which is kind of funny. And there was just too much going on. And the way it was described to me, and I'm really trying to implement this, is the way the spirit guy was saying it to me was, and I said, I just have too much going on right now. I can't just walk away. This law firm's it's got all kinds of unresolved cases and things. And it's like, yeah, it's like you're on the treadmill. It's like you're a gerbil on the treadmill and you're working so much every day. And that's why you're on the treadmill, because that's your mentality. That's your life. That's the life you're living right now. You're going to work every day. You're working all day. You feel like you've got to work so hard. And this is the advice that I thought was super fascinating, and I'm trying to implement it, is 80% of the way these cases and this is all going to get resolved is through your mindset. 20% is through the actual work that needs to be done. So you need to start acting as if. Act as if you already are semi-retired. The cases are already won. That's your mindset. The cases are already won. So you know what I've been doing? I just started this recently, so it's too early to report back, but I'm liking it so far. I thought to myself, if I was actually retired right now from the law, what would my day be like? What would be different? And I thought, what would be different is I would wake up, not even set an alarm, just wake up, whenever that is, and exercise. So what I've been doing this past week is I wake up, I take a walk from like my house to like the downtown area I live, go to Starbucks, get my little, iced latte, walk back. It's about, I get some exercise, maybe 20 minutes each way, get home, exercise for maybe another half hour, and then I go into my office. So instead of feeling like I had to be there at, 7:30, 8 o'clock, I get there when I get there. It might be 10 o'clock, could be 10:30. And when I take that walk and those hours in the morning, and I see people walking their dog, and I see the people that kind of are retired, right? I do feel like them. I feel like, hey, the cases are won. It's all amazing. It's all come together. And so the long-winded way of saying, I also have that advice of like, you've got too much going on, slow down. But this was super interesting to me. And I'll have an update about this as more time passes, but that was kind of my problem. Like you're working too much. And if you have that mindset, and I'm not saying, you have to obviously, work to get things done, but not to the extent where it's like, that's all you do. Work is 24/7. You're on the treadmill. If you don't get off the treadmill, you will be on the treadmill until you die. And so I'm trying to take the approach, even though I'm just as busy today, I'm semi-retired. I'm going to spend my mornings like I'm semi-retired. The cases are won. I'm delegating a lot more, and I'm just doing the things that I need to do. Does that make sense?
Yes. It definitely does. And I've also started taking walks, and just taking time and thinking. The movement piece makes so much sense to me. You would think the opposite. You have to sit down in front of your computer, like you said, at 7:30 and start working, and that's where all your magical, wonderful ideas will come from. And actually, it's quite the opposite.
No, right. Right. What Jessica will say is one of the best ways to kind of get downloads is walk, especially walking like in nature, but just taking a walk. Movement clears your mind. It allows you just to receive. And during those walks, so when I walk in the morning, that's when I really just try to just see what comes my way. And I've had some pretty good ideas that just bounced into my head when I'm just walking in the morning. I just love that time of day. Sun's coming up. It's beautiful out, especially when it's a sunny day. I was telling my wife, I feel so alive and invigorated on those walks. And it just feels so good. That time of the morning when it's quiet, and it's just powerful to me. Um, it's just so powerful. But is there anything, maybe it's too early, like tangibly you're doing differently in terms of how you're working, or benefits you've noticed from little changes you've made?
Definitely, there's a few different things. I think that I started with really looking at how I felt when I would enter into any conversation throughout the day. So, there's those calls where you're like, oh, it's in your gut. Like, "Oh, I don't want to do this." Like, and you get on and it's, and thinking, well, why not put more energy into the sort of like, hell yeah, like I can't wait for this call or wait for this moment of the day by just removing some of the other and you there's it's this like less is more approach, because you can't get caught up in wanting to it's fear based, right? Where I have I have this business or I have a family or I have to do all these things because if I don't, then this like catastrophic event will happen or not happen. And the truth is that's not true. It's fear based, and so I think slowly removing obstacles and, to your point, delegating more, but in the right ways, not in a micromanage. I've just created more work for myself by becoming the victim again, right? Instead, I'm actually allowing people to accomplish the things that they have signed up to do and that they want to do, and then having just really honest conversations instead of uh, getting through another week. And I know it sounds crazy. It's not. It wasn't all like that. It wasn't all bad, but there were moments where I was starting to feel sort of trapped in my own life, and I had to offload certain things and certain relationships and kind of free up the space to make
Cleanse a
room
little
for
bit.
more.
Yeah, cleanse a little bit. I
Yeah.
say this too, and this is would be my little 2 cents to you. So I've had several follow-up sessions, with Jessica. It's not like you just one and done. I think it's a process. You have a spirit guide and you check in and you're making improvements, hopefully, and you're taking some advice to heart. And it's a process, and as you go along, you'll get little pats on the back, and you'll also get little nudges about things you can do better. Um, and I just think that's part of it too. It's not like you just do one session and it's over and everything's figured out and it's magical. What hit me in that first session was, for me, it just resonated that this is really helpful. It makes sense. I'd like your take on this. And I also thought with Jessica. So for people that don't believe it, which is fine, and I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm just telling people my experience. It makes sense to me. It resonates with me. Everything about it, is positive to me. But in talking to Jessica, your session was 90 minutes, right?
Mhm.
So the part that really struck me, putting aside the substance of what she says, I think you have to meet her, and I've spent a lot of time with her. The way she talks effortlessly, it just flows. There were times when in my last session, if you could see this video, where I was trying to talk and she's like, can I just wait? Because your guide wants to get 2 more points out. Like it was not at all. I never, ever have gotten the impression like she's making things up on the fly. She's just saying this. I think it'd be extremely hard to, in 90 minutes, just kind of like just be making stuff up without the other person feeling like, gosh, she's just making all this stuff up. Like you could probably do that in 10 minutes, but 90 minutes, the way the conversation just flows, the way she channels your spirit guide, I find fascinating, credible, and authentic. What was your experience with her?
That was the same, because I went in pretty skeptical, and I thought either you've missed your calling as the greatest improv performer in
Right.
history, or there's something here. And actually I had to go back and listen because I would be focused questioning whether or not I believed her, like, throughout, and missing key points, which is very, I think, human of us to do. And it goes back to slowing down, because I missed half of what she said until I listened to it again.
No, I've gone back. In fact, I went back this one that I did a few months ago where my spirit guide was saying, like, can we talk about maybe you being like semi-retired? I went back and listened to that one again and watched it. And I got a lot more out of it because you just notice more. And I look at it this way. It's the same way when I buy a book. I've bought in books like motivational books, inspirational books. And if there's one thing in that book that helps me, maybe it's just one page or one chapter out of 12, it's all worth it. In your session, it's not like every single thing has to make sense right now, or every single thing has to be powerful or life changing. But if there's one theme or one message or one little tip or one nudge that does resonate, that's the one you want to kind of cling on to and implement. And that's what I find powerful. And this whole notion this last time of act as if, and that can apply to anything. For me, it's like act as if you're semi-retired. Whatever your if is, right, that you're trying to achieve. It made so much sense to me that changing my mindset is going to change those results. That really resonated with me when I saw what I had been doing, just grinding every day, that is just a path to continually grind. Like I'm working in a rock quarry, and I'm trying to do this less is more, delegate. The case is already won, and I'm already feeling a whole different vibe. I'm seeing more productivity. I'm delegating more. I'm just focusing on the big picture stuff that I need to do, not the nitty gritty day to day. And it's been amazing. And that's something that just came up in my most recent session. So my point is, it's a process. You're going to get basically advice from your spirit guide over time that's in the moment. But I'm just so glad you did it and checked it out. And again, I would, it doesn't, I just want honesty and authenticity, I'll be very curious to see how things continue to play out for you, over time. And what you can do down the road is you can check in. You can do another session maybe, this summer, this fall, and you'll get a little feedback on how you're doing, and you might have questions, What's the feedback been like from friends or family? Like, people been asking you about it or intrigued by it?
Yes. It's funny. What's interesting is that there's certain people in your life, usually the ones that are hardest on you, like my sister, for instance, right? She's always got something to say, and you're like, oh, it's always true. And they that kind of already saw the things that the spirit guide's telling you.
You don't need a spirit guide. I'm your spirit guide.
They're like, yeah, everyone saw that, like, but I didn't see it. And what they're interested in is, yes, like the information, but also like, where did you come from, and what does the spirit guide look like, and what is their
Right.
personality? Definitely the changes I've made, I think, for have been noticed, and there's been many conversations about that, and they're still happening and unfolding, because I've made lots of adjustments, I guess, and had lots of enhancements. So I'm curious to see maybe in the coming months how people react to those, and then training myself to change how I react so that I don't end up in the same situation again where I'm overwhelmed. But I think the description of the spirit guide and also the type of spirit guide. So for me, I asked, is how did my spirit guide get assigned? And there,
Yeah. What were
just
you
was like,
told?
oh, she just signed up. She just like just signed up because someone needed to do it, and that's I guess from this pink space world, very very far away. That's how they do it there. So it actually made it more almost like challenging for me, because now I'm like, oh, this isn't like some personal relationship I've had for all these years. Like, this is spirit guides grading me. This is a test. My competitive nature came out.
Have you tried, because part of the process is, now that you are aware of the concept that you have a spirit guide, if it kind of resonates with you and you want to continue exploring that, have you tried trying to, because what Jessica was always encouraging me is develop a relationship with your spirit guide. So it's not like, don't try to tap in. Don't wait to tap in until your next appointment, which might be in 3 or 4 months. try maybe on a daily basis. Like some of the things she's told me is you could just basically quiet your mind, meditate, whatever, say things like, it starts simple, like spirit guide, tell me something you want me to know today, or tell me something. It could be anything. Whatever kind of question. She kind of suggests you start small. It could be like, what should we have for dinner tonight? Or where should we go to eat? But you can gradually build it up to more substantive, powerful questions. Could be in an employment decision. It could be a career decision. It could be a business decision, getting insight like that. So I would encourage you to try to kind of tap in more, continue to try to tap into that. We call it intuition, but I think it's also, it's the equivalent of your spirit guide. It's not like, you don't have to wait for Jessica to do it. What she stresses is we all have this power. We just don't realize it. We just don't trust it. It takes time and practice, especially quieting your mind and being in a position to receive. But I really would encourage you to continue to try to do those things, because you can basically then get this kind of guidance frequently.
Absolutely. And I've definitely, by the way, believe it, don't believe it, it really doesn't make a difference when you're coming into something like this for the first time. It's still really awkward. Like, hey, spirit guide, what's going on? I'm like, did someone hear me? And so that's the other part. But yeah, absolutely. Asking questions, and even just talking through this with you right now, someone who's been through the process and extensively, is I have more is coming out of that first session, just in this discussion.
Yeah. Well, that's why I really wanted to I've done a few follow-ups, because I had more questions. I wanted some guidance about things that were said to me. What I need to do better on is I need to do more what I call practice. I mean, Jessica will say that she spent a lot of time developing that intuition. Everybody has it, but developing it, quieting your mind so you can receive it, and then trusting it. So for me, she said that I was claircognizant, which is clear knowing. So you just know things. And for people that are claircognizant, what she'll say is, claircognizant people also are the most skeptical, in the sense of, you're like, no, I didn't get a download like from the universe. It's just something I know. It's just me. I thought that. Well, I did think it, but where did it come from? Where am I getting those thoughts, and why? Did you get any kind of designation about what your strength might be? Like, some people are clairvoyant, some are claircognizant, some are clairtransient in terms of feeling. Did she kind of diagnose that at all?
A little bit, which is really interesting. But I forget the Claire term, but the touch one,
Oh,
which is, I mean, I don't really touch that many things throughout the day. If you think about it, like, I touch my computer, I touch my car, my door. But that, I guess it started to make more sense
the
when
touch one, the way I understand it is, your spirit guide can give you signals that involve you feeling a physical sensation. So she's done this with me. She say, like, spirit guide, if you are there, please, squeeze my hand. Or you might feel a touch sensation. You may feel warmth. For me, in what she says, when you're claircognizant, it seems like your other clairs are weaker. So I have not really felt much resonate with touch or seeing. But the claircognizant part, to me, the clear knowing, and I just, this is so true for me. Like, she has a whole episode on her podcast about the different clairs. And for claircognizant people, she said they often are good at giving advice. And situations come up at work. People come in, hey, how do we handle this? To me, it's like, oh, well, clearly this is how we handle it. And then I'm just like, I'm done. Like, why are we still talking about this? Like, it's so obvious. Just do A, B, and C, right? And then I'm moving on to the next thing I'm thinking about. But I would encourage you to try to implement some of the things you learned, and do a follow-up one down the road when you think you're ready. and then we'll have you back on here again, talking about your evolution and your growth. But I think it's super fascinating. I'm so glad you did it. I hope it leads to some positive changes, and they can be small, take baby steps, but the baby steps turn into adult steps and you start making progress. Is there anything else you want to share or just tell me about your session that, we haven't discussed?
No, I mean, I think we've covered all I can really that I've digested myself. So maybe there might be more down the line, and I so also appreciate you for putting that out there, and being so candid in your I guess what's the word I'm looking for, your take on different situations. And yeah, it's been quite an experience. I feel like I've gotten to know you this year.
Yeah. Well, the thing I will say about it is what I get, that there's going to be people, it resonates with some people. Other people think like, no way, I'm a complete skeptic, people in the middle. But I think everybody should have a curiosity about it. The part that drives me crazy in life is when people aren't curious. I think curiosity is such an asset in life. It's like little kids. That's why little kids, they're just curious. They pick something up. Oh, what is this? Or how do I do this? Or what's that? That curiosity is such a powerful asset. So for something like this, I just don't see how, if you're at a party and you bring up this conversation, I don't see how you wouldn't at least be intrigued. Why wouldn't you want to learn more and, experience it? And it's okay if you do it and you thought, oh, I think it's all garbage. None of it made sense to me. But the concept to me is so interesting. I think it makes sense to me. It resonates, but I feel like it should be more mainstream, that it's out there, and maybe it will be. And that's why I think part of my path and calling was that's why I started the Connect podcast, because my spirit guy was urging me to do it. That's why I'm here doing it. So I know we're going to be continuing this conversation. I know your journey is just beginning. I also know there's going to be some really positive changes for you. Doesn't have to be huge ones, but little things that you're going to look back on and say, this really has worked. This is like so much better. Whatever little aspect of your life that is, when we come back, let's calendar it for like, we'll give you maybe another, 3 months. We'll come back in the fall and we'll have a check-in and we'll kind of see where you're at. Your daughter will be a little bit older, and how's she doing?
Great.
Okay.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you.
Fantastic. So I'm so glad we had this conversation. Everybody out there, thanks for listening to this episode of Connect. If you liked it, please give us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate it. Bell and Ivy, by the way, Cynthia's company, does my design and promotion. They're amazing. I appreciate everything they've done for me. They've really helped me create my identity and put that out there. It's been amazing. For anybody who wants that kind of people-based marketing, defining a brand, getting more impact, reach out to Cynthia, Bell and Ivy. It's incredible. So our conversation to be continued. We'll talk again soon. All right?
Thank you.
All right.